How's it going, y'all, and welcome back for the 13th installment of this Advanced Climber series. If this is your first time watching this series, what this essentially is a laundry list of tools, tips, tactics, and strategies for advanced climbers to help them level up. These are the things I wish I had when I started climbing 20 years ago, so hopefully I can help y'all out along this journey. If you feel like you are not quite yet an advanced climber, that's okay. Still watch this. It's great. It's also good for the algorithm. Keep it running in the background at the very least. In all seriousness, I have a beginner and an intermediate category put together in one playlist, so you should be able to find it fairly easily. That said, I do believe that you can still get plenty of great value as a beginner, intermediate, advanced, or elite climber watching these videos. These tips are fairly broad and apply to a lot of people at certain points in their career. While I hope a lot of this advice is useful to you right now, some of it might not be. Some of it might be bad advice for you right now, but maybe 5 years ago, that would have been the thing. Had only you known then. Or maybe 5 years from now, you'll run into an issue and you'll think, oh yeah, no, actually this makes sense now. Hopefully this series helps to give you the tools to address your current problems as well as problems that you'll encounter in the future. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. Number 76, formulating a performance season strategy. I used to be of the opinion that there were 4 pillars to climbing: mental, physical, technical, and tactical. I now add strategic to this, so I would now say that there are 5 because of how important strategy is. Big picture strategy around when are you trying to perform, when are you training, when are you practicing. Rock climbing is so different from almost every other sport because we don't have a performance season. If you played team sports growing up, at the beginning of the season, you might have gotten a printout that said, here are the dates of all your games, here's who you're playing, where you're playing. You knew everything. We don't have that in climbing. If you think about a marathoner or like a power lifter, they know their one date that they are going to perform at this year, and it is 7 months out from now, and it's this one singular day that they are sharpening themselves towards, which is kind of cool. It's really unique, and it makes periodization a little bit easier too if you really only have one thing to focus on. With rock climbing, you can perform every day of the week if you want. I can go out tomorrow and try and send my project. It's cold here. That's totally an option. Obviously, you're limited by weather to some degree, but that's part of this whole strategy. What time of year should I be in shape to try and send? At what crags, different areas? If I only climb indoors, once again, you could do it anytime you want. When do you say this is a season for training? This is my time for practicing and improving my skills. Here is the period in which I'm going to try and perform. We can look at this everything from a full year to quarters to even within a week or a session. What part of your session is meant for training? What part of it's meant for practicing? Is there a time for performance? And that's okay. Like your indoor climbing sessions can have performance, but we need to be intentional with them. I would argue this is one of the easiest to fumble pillars of climbing. I think this is the one that people mess up the most. And also, it's the one that I see climbers who maybe aren't the strongest, fittest, or technically best really be able to leverage to climb very hard climbs because they know how to set themselves up well. There are countless amazing climbers, very strong, very skilled, who mess this up. They don't know how to plan when they're going to perform during the year, and because of that, they may have these amazing peaks where it feels like all the stars are aligning and they're where they want to be, and it is the hottest part of the year. They can't actually try anything outdoors that they want to, and then from there, maybe they try to extend this. They say, okay, well, I'm climbing really, really well. I'm going to keep doing everything I'm doing, and I'm going to try and run this out for 4 more months because that's when I'm going on this trip, or that's when outdoor rock climbing is good, is 4 months from now. And you can't hold a peak for 4 months. You're going to get really exhausted. You're going to feel physically burnt out, mentally burnt out. It's not uncommon that people end up getting injuries from trying to stay on top of this peak for too long. They just keep running their body into the ground so hard for so long that it kind of ends up breaking them. Even within a season itself, how do you line yourself up to be as ready as you can for that hard project? Let's say your project is going to be really good in November, but the whole area that you live in is still climbable in October. What is your plan for doing other boulders or routes that are going to build momentum, build specific fitness, maybe toughen your skin, get you mentally and emotionally ready to try really hard on this project so that when the time comes, when your project is ready, so are you. There are many great climbers who do this intuitively, but for most of us, we need a plan. We need to be strategic with how we are setting ourselves up to perform well. If you don't make a plan, you're going to just fall back to what feels good or fun. And what is your motivation telling you to do? Here's the thing, motivation is fickle. Are you hungry today? You don't have motivation. You shouldn't be so reliant on something that is that fickle. If you do have a background in traditional sports, especially team sports, think about how you did things in the past and maybe what worked well for you then. You think about going into a normal season. Maybe you're going to have scrimmages where you practice, it's pretty low stakes. Then you have your normal in-season games and then maybe playoffs from there, or depending on what kind of sport it is, higher level championships. Maybe early in the season, yes, performance is important, but you don't care that much. I was a distance runner, and for us, it was very important to keep in mind, early season, you wanted to race hard, you wanted to do well, but you knew that you were trying to peak for regionals, divisionals, and state. It was not a huge deal to come out and run the first preseason race and hit a new PR because you had 2 months of speed work ahead of you. You were going to get faster. We should be having this huge base built ahead of time. So yeah, maybe I'm going to be slower, but I know that's okay because now is not the time to be running at my all-time best. It's all about the end goal. And this is the same with climbing. If your season is 3 months long, you don't need to be at your tip-top best shape ever day one. In fact, I would recommend not, because you cannot hold a peak for 3 months. I think you're better off showing up with a lot of good base skills and traits that allow you to get a lot of climbing in. And then, let's hit some second tier routes. Let's do some climbs that are anti-style for you, things that are going to be challenging in terms of how hard you have to try, but it's not going to be the hardest grade you ever climb. From there, let's build some momentum. Let's really solidify our confidence by knocking out some second tier routes or boulders, whatever it is that you do. Maybe from there we start doing things that are going to set us up well for our project. If you're trying a route that has really hard stopper crux in it, maybe you're going to go do other routes that are shorter and just a notch easier that have a similar style crux so that you can really get locked into that type of climbing. Then when the time comes, how often are we going to be trying our project? How many goes per day are you going to try your project? How much extra fitness work are you doing on the side? Are you doing strength work, power work during the week? If you're a weekend warrior, what do those 5 days in between look like? There are so many things that can go into this that can shape your season into being the best season of your life or, just another one that got away from you. Strategy is enormous, and in climbing, more than any other sport I know of, it has such a fundamental impact on how we do. Number 77. Having Plan A and Plan B beta options that you can choose on the fly. For earlier on in climbing, it is highly recommended that when you are leaving the ground, pick something that you're going to do, go up and try hard with confidence, and be as decisive as you can. That is incredibly important. You really need to be able to develop that skill if you want to be good at climbing. Once you've done that and you feel like, okay, I can make a plan on the ground, I know what I'm doing, I can go up, I can pull the trigger, and I can really go for it, 100% commitment, now we can start doing something a little different. Now, you can start having a Plan A and a Plan B option for specific moves, and when you get to that move, you go in with Plan A and you say, okay, I'm going to set up, I'm going to see, does this feel good? If it doesn't, you switch to Plan B. Plan A is your new beta that you want to test out, and Plan B is the method that you think will most likely work. It's often good advice that you shouldn't change up things whenever you're trying to perform. Yeah, that's all good and well, like if you're going to go run a marathon, don't break out a brand new pair of shoes for the first time ever before running. That's an awful idea. The thing is, we only have so many attempts in rock climbing, and this is especially true for sport climbing. You need to be able to test out new things on the fly. Here's kind of how this ends up looking. Let's say you're trying your project and you watch someone go up, and for the red point crux, they place this super high heel hook you had never even imagined, and man, they make the move look good. Way better than you do. So you think, okay, I'd really like to try that. This is the perfect time for this plan A, plan B option. So you go up and you say, okay, plan A is I'm going to go up, I'm going to get to that rail, I'm going to look at this hold, and I'm going to say, okay, if this looks feasible, I'm going to put the heel on and I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try super hard, even though I've never attempted this beta. I'm going to go with 100% confidence and really go for this. However, if you get there and you say, oh no, that heel is so much closer to my face and so much higher than I thought, and I'm so pumped that I can't even bend my arms up enough to get my heel there, what you're going to do, you're not going to panic. You're not going to go, what do I do? Take. That's the last thing we're going to do. You stay calm, you look over, you say, nope. You go right back to plan B, the thing that you've tried every time before this with 100% confidence. You know what you're doing. You have as much decisiveness as you can. Hesitation will make you fall almost every time. Good beta with bad execution will still make you fall. So it is incredibly important when we're doing this that you learn how to toggle back and forth between plan A and plan B with 100% decisiveness. If you decide that this is something you want to employ into your climbing strategies, maybe take video of yourself as you're trying this. Or if you're sport climbing, talk with your belayer about how it goes. If you are waffling back and forth and you're not sure, I'm not really too positive, sometimes you can spot that on your own. Maybe it doesn't feel like that's what's happening though. It's good to have some more objective feedback. Because if you talk with your belayer and they're like, oh man, you kind of sat on those crux holds for a long time, not really sure what feet you were going to use or which hand you were going to go with. Like you probably could have chosen anything and you would have done it. You sat on those crux holds for 30 full seconds before pumping off. You could probably have just done the move. It's very important that we have these objective measurements to base this skill off of, because while it is very powerful and incredibly useful and you can learn and adapt your climbing on the fly very well like this, if used poorly, it's just going to make your climbing worse. Number 79, understanding negative space in climbing. This shows up a lot outside, but it shows up a ton indoors, and this is maybe the easiest way to explain it. Negative space, as I'm using the term right now, is any empty space between you and the wall. Oftentimes, if you're climbing on a flat board, let's say you're on a tension board, it's just a big flat panel. There's not really any extra space in between you and the wall outside of your chest to the board. Very little. But imagine if you're climbing on a wall where both hands are on volumes that stick really far out away from the wall. Now your hands might be on the same plane, but there is this huge gap in front of you of maybe 2 feet of space. What's super interesting is if you watch most people, we tend to move in a way as if there's this imaginary wall in front of us. Unless it is explicitly a dihedral that we can stem inside of, a lot of us don't take up this extra space that might be afforded in front of us. And this happens outside a lot too. Imagine there's this giant scoop in front of you that goes in an extra 10 inches beyond where your hands are. Maybe your hands are flat, but where your chest is, the wall kind of indents in. You can actually pull into that space, and it can feel like you're underneath your hands even more. You might be able to get into a new position and generate power in a more unique way using this negative space. This also happens a lot with commercial gym setting because gym holds are enormous these days. They stick so far from the wall. A lot of times you might be climbing from hold to hold in this straight path, even though all of these holds, the actual usable surfaces, might be a full foot away from the wall. So you have so much extra free space to exist within. And this is one of those rare moments where I think this skill is much easier to learn indoors because volumes and commercial holds have gotten so enormous that negative space exists much more frequently. Learn this indoors, and the more you do it there, you'll start to see it outside much more often. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you have anything that you would like to see made into a full video that you heard today, let me know in the comments down below. If there's anything extra that you'd like to add to the conversation, maybe I left some parts out that you feel like are really important, or for certain types of people, there are some different lenses to look through when viewing this advice that you think would help contribute to the community, leave it down below. I'd love to hear that. Also, if you heard me say some things and you're like, I think you're wrong, yeah, leave that too. I'd love to hear it. I'm always trying to improve my craft, and I, more than anything, want to deliver good information. It's okay if it's not my own original idea. Most of these things aren't. This is just me trying to compile as much information I can that I have seen work for people, actual successful strategies. And so if you can help contribute to that, please do. I would love to hear it. Even if that means that something I say in the short term is wrong, I would much rather be right in the long run. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.